Okay, in this lesson here, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at Unrealscript workflow. Now, we're not going to get into any programming whatsoever. Basically, this lesson is about packages. And packages play a critical role in the entire Unreal Tournament makeup, if you will. Isn't that right, Logan?
Right, that's how we take our source script files and actually put them into a package that Unreal reads at game time.
Now, the game, when you first install it, I mean, it comes with many packages that are already set up by Epic Games.
Right, because packages are how all those types of scripts are stored ready for game use.
And the cool thing is, it's not just scripts, and we're going to see that in just a minute. But this lesson here is an overview of the process used to generate new packages. And that, of course, is going to become a very important thing to everybody out there as they go through these VTMs and they learn how to start generating their own Unreal scripts, basically making their own mods for the game.
Right, how you get your own script that you've typed out actually game usable like all the other packages.
Absolutely. All right, also another thing I'll go ahead and point out is I put together a little PowerPoint presentation for the simple fact that we're going to be talking here for a few minutes, and I wanted to have something that will actually change on the screen until we get into doing a few things. Plus, some of the steps involved in actually going in and creating a package can become a little bit tedious, which means I'm going to be yakking, and Logan's going to be yakking and yakking. We're going to be saying all these things about create this folder, move these here, and do this and do that. And what's going to happen is a lot of the viewers out there will be like, kind of zone out a little bit. It'll all become kind of blurry. And by throwing up text on the screen like this, kind of as a map or a blueprint for what to do, I think it's going to be very helpful to a lot of you out there. So just letting you know why we're going about doing it this way. Okay, so first, what exactly is a package? Well, as Logan said just a second ago, a package, it's basically a file that contains content, okay? Well, if you hear that, the next thing I would say, or ask anyways, would be, well, what kind of content will you find in a package? Well, pretty much everything. If you think about it in regards to Unreal Tournament, you'll find code. You'll find Unreal scripts, basically, classes, and we'll be talking about classes a little bit later. You'll find textures, you know, the textures you make inside of Photoshop or any other paint utility. You'll find audio or your sound effects that you make. You'll find static meshes. You'll find animation. You'll find maps. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you'll find inside these packages. Right, Logan?
Right.
Okay. So, with that, the core package types, and basically we're referring to the extensions here. And this is really just an organizational thing, right, Logan?
That's right. I mean, different packages, like, say, for example, you have maps, and the map can have a screenshot in it, so you have both a map and a texture in one package. And, of course, .u files, like if you have a mod that has guns with new textures, often you'll have not only the code, but the models and textures all in one file.
Exactly.
Now, some types of files, like you may have your texture libraries or packages, which are set up to, you just have a folder set up to contain only textures simply because there's enough of them to need that type of organization.
Right. So what he's getting at is, you know, these extensions here, I mean, they do mean something, but they don't mean something in a sense. I mean, in a very roundabout sense. In other words, we could put just about everything inside a .u file if we wanted to.
Right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just talk about these real quick. The .u file is going to be something very common that everybody out there is going to be dealing with. When you start making your own mods and you start compiling your new packages, what you end up with is a .u file, okay? We've got .ut2 files. Well, let's go back to the .u file real quick. In that you're going to find, and you'll actually see in a few minutes, we'll do this ourselves, where you'll find scripts, you'll find models, textures, sounds, pretty much everything. And we'll actually do that in this particular lesson. We'll make our own .u file that contains pretty much everything. A .ut2 file, that's your map file, okay? Everybody knows about going in there, you make a map, but from those of you out there that are level editors, you'll know that with your map you can actually store textures, you can store models, etc. You know, when you go in there and you import something in while you're working in a map inside of Unreal Ed, and you say that the package is my level, that's storing it in the map.
Right, that's how you go about like taking a texture for a screenshot, as well as any custom static meshes you might have.
Exactly. And then as Logan was talking about, we kind of get into the libraries, if you will, of specific content. And we've got the .utx files. Anytime you see those, immediately think textures. We've got the .uax files. That's our sounds, our audio. We've got the .usx. That's all of our static meshes. And we've got the .ukx, which are all of our animations. And again, these are the core package types. There are some other package types out there, but these are the ones that you're going to be seeing all of the time.
Right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and advance forward. Creating new packages. Because in the end, when we start getting into mod work, that's what it's all about. Creating new packages. So there's two methods that we could go about creating them. First, we can use Unreal Ed. Now, Unreal Ed is the level editor that has a lot more capabilities than just creating levels, right, Logan?
Right. That's also where you go in there and create your own texture libraries by bringing textures into a UTX package.
That's right, or static meshes, or, I mean, the list goes on. Now, you know, you got all the browsers in there. And for those of you that have not seen, for instance, our level design VTM, you might want to take a look at that because we go over Unreal Ed, you know, at least from a good beginner's point of view. You get an idea of the different browsers and the things that you can do with it. But Unreal Ed kind of has some drawbacks, if you will, when it comes to working with new packages and changing scripts around.
Right, like the level of control you have about what gets brought into the packages, and it can be a little bit flaky when compiling.
Exactly. And in this case here, we want to be as precise as possible, and we want to avoid anything acting strange or giving us any hiccups or problems. So there is another method that we could use, which is UCC make. And UCC is a .exe. It's an executable utility that you will find up under the UT2003/system folder. And this utility basically will read in all of the edit packages in the UT2003.ini file, and it'll go through and compile them all, or compile the ones that need to be compiled into .u files. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But this isn't flaky, is it, Logan?
No, this is it's the most controllable method. You go and set up the folder structure for the content of your package.
Yeah, you don't stumble into scenarios where you accidentally save over something you don't want to save over and things like that.
Right. Plus, it's the accepted method of bringing, say, for example, more than just your script files, also bringing in textures or models.
Absolutely. And I've just got noted out over the side that this is known as the Unreal OS execution environment. So cool. Okay. And, of course, I've got down here in this VTM, we will be using the UCC make option. Okay, so UCC make workflow. All right, what's the workflow here? First of all, what we're going to do is we are going to create a new folder, just a regular Windows folder. And we're going to create that new folder up under the UT 2003 root folder. Okay, so in other words, you go to the drive that you installed Unreal Tournament 2003 to, and you jump right up under UT 2003, and right there, you're going to create a new folder. And this folder, the name of this folder is what's going to end up being the package name. Right, Logan?
Right, that, and it's also going to be associated with a certain thing called edit packages that you'll see shortly.
Absolutely. So, you know, you can call this the project folder. I like to call it the package folder. I mean, it all
kind of represents what your package is going to contain.
Exactly. Okay, so after you've created that, up underneath that folder, or inside that folder, you're going to be creating subfolders. And you only create the subfolders that you need. And there's classes, models, textures, sounds. There's all sorts of these subfolders that you can make. But again, it all depends on what's going to be inside this package. If we've created new classes, in other words, we've got new scripts that we're going to be putting in the package, we need a classes folder. If we've got new models that we've created inside another 3D animation program, then we're going to need a models folder, and our animation will go there as well. And the list goes on. And again, we'll actually see this in action in just a couple of minutes. Then once we've done that, of course, the appropriate files need to then be put in the right folders, like I was just talking about. After that, what we need to do is go up under the System folder and edit the UT2003.ini file. Okay, this is very important. What you're going to do is in a specific location, we're going to add edit packages equals and the name of the folder, your package folder, so that when we do run UCC make, that's the area that's going to get looked at. It's going to be like, all right, what kind of packages do we need to look for compiling? And that's how it's going to know to find the one that you've added here. From there, you'll just simply run UCC make. We're going to run it from a command prompt. You're ready to play the game. After you run UCC make, it makes a new .u file, that's your new package file, that has been added to the System folder. Run the game, everything's great. If you want to go back in and make some tweaks to the package, what you need to do is, you can go make those tweaks first, but before you recompile, in other words, before you use UCC make again, you need to go in there and delete out the .u file. Otherwise, what's going to happen is, when you run UCC make, it looks at all of the package files that are inside the UT2003 ini file. If it finds a .u representation, in other words, a compiled version of that package already in the System folder, no dice. In other words, it's not going to recompile it. This is a time-saving feature, right, Logan?
Not only that, but it also saves you from accidentally recompiling all your system or all the system files that come with the game.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. And so you need to make sure that you delete out the .u file first, and then you'll be ready to go. So with that, it's time to see how it's all done, how it's all put together. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So we'll go ahead and jump out of here. And, starting out, Logan, let's go ahead and... Where do you want to start out? Let's just start out inside this is Unreal Ed right here, just in case there happens to be anybody out there that's never seen it before. But let's go ahead and start out working with some folders. Here we are. I'm on my D drive up under the UT 2003 folder. And if you remember what I said just a minute ago, is the first rule is we need to create our package folder, right?
Right, where all the content for our package is going to reside to begin with.
So we're going to make a new folder here. So let's go ahead, new folder, and what do we want to call this? Health sphere?
That sounds good.
Okay. Health, I can't spell to save my life, sphere. All right, now from there, up inside a health sphere, now we need to go ahead and create the folders that are going to accommodate the content that you'll be bringing in. And in this case, we've got an Unrealscript file, we have got a new model, we've got a new texture, and we've got a new sound as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and set those up real quick. So we'll come in here. First, I'm going to say new folder. Let's go ahead and make classes. We're going to make another new folder. And this one is going to be models. And then another new folder. And this one's going to be sounds. And another new folder. And this one will be textures. Okay? Now, I've already got this content all developed. Let's go ahead and just step back up, and we're going to come up under Buzz Stuff real quick. And I'm just going to grab all of this content right here and copy it. And then now let's just go ahead and jump back over into our health sphere. And I'm just going to paste it at the root right here to start with. Now, of course, all of this content's been made from, various utilities or whatever. I mean, we've got our PSK file, which is going to contain the geometry that we created. And this has been created inside of 3ds Max. Real simple sphere. Then we've got the Y1, and don't ask, the Y1.bitmap. This is our texture file. It's just a yellow smiley face that we're going to apply to the sphere. And then we've got I Feel Good. Okay, that's our little wave file. And then finally we've got our healthsphere.uc file. Okay. And what we need to do is we need to put this all into the appropriate location. So let's go and start out with the .uc file. This is our Unrealscript code. So we'll just simply take that. I'm going to move it up here to classes and move here. Now let's go ahead and take our model, this guy right here, the PSK file. We'll move it up here to models. Move here. The I Feel Good wave. Let's go ahead and take this and move it on up to sounds. And finally, the Y1 bitmap. We'll move it up here to textures. So far looking good to you, Logan?
All right, basically just organizing the content based on how it needs to be brought in.
That's right. Now, what this thing does, basically it just creates a little sphere that we can put inside of a level, and the little sphere has, it's yellow, it's got a little smiley face on it, it looks very, very, dorky. Creepy. Yeah, it looks very creepy. I like that because it really does. This weird yellow sphere just smiling at you. But when you run over it, it goes, "Wow, I feel good," and it gives you extra points. What is it, like 10 extra points or something?
Something like that.
And of course, you can just keep hitting it over and over and over and over and over. Right now, we've not made it into a full. I mean, it's usable inside a level, right?
Right, but it's more for example purposes. It's not got all the full checks of is a player touching the sphere, what's your max health and stuff like that.
Exactly. Making it disappear, things like that. Because we're going to actually do this. We're going to build this entire thing in this VTM here. And in this VTM, we're not getting heavily into all the code syntax that's available out there, only because, again, we're trying to keep, the lid on these VTMs so they don't get too big and, people lose perspective. But we're going to be covering some very simple stuff, and we'll teach you how to do it a little bit later on, and then we can go and build onto it in other VTMs. Of course, we'll be getting into more interesting things with characters and weapons and vehicles and stuff like that. But this is a good starting point. And especially right here, because this is where we get to see where we have gone in there and we've set up a new package folder called Health Sphere, and we've come in here and we've got all of our folders properly set up with the content required in it. And now we're ready to go ahead and see what we need to do to compile this. Well, if you remember from the workflow, you need to make sure that we've got the edit packages line in our UT 2003 ini file. Right, Logan?
That's right.
So what we can do is just go ahead and jump up here back to the root of UT 2003, come down to the system folder, and hit U or just cruise all the way down close to the bottom and find that UT 2003 ini file. So let's just go ahead and jump in here, and I'm just going to do a quick Control F, and I'm going to look for Edit P. This will jump me down to the first set of the edit packages, and this is up underneath the section editor.editor engine, okay? What we're going to do is simply scroll down. Now there's another set of these, right?
Yes, there may be another set farther down in the ini file. It's, the first one is the one you need to be worried about.
Exactly, so that's why we jump to this first set of edit packages. I'll simply come down to the very last guy, I'll highlight, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste right after it. And what do we need to put over here, Logan?
Health Sphere.
You got it. Health Sphere. So now, when we run UCC make, what's going to happen is UCC make is going to come down here and it's going to go core. Okay, check. Does core exist up under system? Yes, it does. Don't do anything. Engine, fire, editor, Unreal Ed, and it goes and it goes and it goes and it goes. But the first time we run UCC make, it's going to hit Health Sphere. Look under the system folder, and does a healthsphere.u exist? The answer is no. Well, at least I hope not. Which means at that point, UCC Make's going to say, hey, what we need to do is compile this package. So then it looks for that HealthSphere folder up under the UT 2003 root folder, and then it compiles it appropriately so that we've got all of the content then organized into a single compiled, if you will, package, and that is healthsphere.u, and that file is then placed up under the system folder. This is where we can get into trouble, as I was talking about just a few minutes ago in the little PowerPoint show, and that is when you go to recompile, let's say you've made some tweaks to your code, model, etc. If you don't go and delete out that healthsphere.u file, when we run UCC make again and it's coming through all these lines and it comes down here and hits this one right here, what's going to happen is it's going to say, it already exists.
Right, and then we'll attempt to recompile it.
You got it. So with this all set up, let's go ahead and save this. And now what I want to do, in fact, we can go ahead and close it as well, is let's go ahead and bring up a command prompt. Hey, how was that for fast? So here, let's go ahead, and we're already up under the UT 2003 folder. Let's go ahead and change directory to System, and watch this. UCC space MAKE. Ta-da, and execute. And now here, look at this. It's running through core, engine, fire, going all the way down. Look at that. The last one, Health Sphere, analyzing, parsing Health Sphere. Notice how it's the only one that it parsed. In other words, it went through line by line, piece by piece, broke it up. It compiled Health Sphere. Importing defaults for HealthSphere, success. We had 0 errors and 0 warnings. At this point, we should be in pretty good shape, shouldn't we, Logan?
That's right. We should be able to play the game and at least summon that.
Summon it, or if we wanted to actually build a whole new level that made use of this package, we could do that as well. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at that. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and come back over here, and let's just select that crazy texture right there real quick. I'll just throw down a basic cube, nothing fancy, and come in here and Control S. And now what I want to do is we switch over here to Actor Classes. I need to go ahead and open up HealthSphere. So I'm going to come up here to File, Open Package. Look at that. I'm in my System folder, and I'm looking at all of my .u files that we talked about earlier. And now all I need to do is come in here and locate HealthSphere. Go ahead and tell it to open. Give it a second. Now I need to re-expand actors. Here it comes. And we'll find the H's up under V's. We'll come down here, and we will grab HealthSphere. Come over here inside our extremely cool level, and right-click, add HealthSphere here. And right now, of course, there's no lights on this thing, so it's going to show up completely dark. So we could rather switch over to a no lighting mode, or I can just simply double-click, and then let's just come in here to Display, and we'll come down to Be Unlit. Let's go ahead and set it to True, and now we can deselect. And here's what Mr. Logan was talking about when he said creepy. So right there, we've got our sphere in there. It's got the texture on it, and if we actually use this in the game right now and a player ran over it, we'd hear the sound file played appropriately, right, Logan?
Right, and you get 10 extra points of health, as well as it would log an event. So if you had your log window open, you could see that it was confirming that you had hit the sphere.
Absolutely. All that functionality is already there. Okay? So that's pretty much it. Now, again, talking about going in there and let's make some changes. In fact, Logan, let's do something crazy. Let's go ahead and come back over here. And what I want to do is we'll climb back up. We'll jump down up under Health Sphere. Let's come up into Classes. We'll jump into here real quick. And, whoa, we got all sorts of crazy, scary-looking code up here. Let's go in here and change a few things around. Let's change something that will give us a definite error. Let's save it out. Let's close it out. Don't worry about what I just did. The idea is not to scare anybody. The idea is I want to do something in the code that's going to generate an error, okay? Just to simply show what happens if I was to come back in here, hit my up arrow, and run UCC make again without forgetting to delete out the package file. Because we should see some sort of warning or error, right?
Right, because now we've specified an invalid mesh.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go in here, hit enter, and watch this. Look at that. 0 errors. I'm just kind of driving home the point that I was talking about earlier, that if you forget to delete that .u file from up under your system folder, it will be skipped by UCC make.
Right, whether there's an error or even if it didn't exist at all. Because, I mean, you don't have folders for stuff like engine and core, and no problems there because your .u file exists.
So let's go ahead, and real quick, Logan, before we wrap this lesson up, let's go ahead and jump back up. Let's go ahead and come into the system folder, jump down here to the H's. And then there we go.
Might have to close Unreal because it's currently using that package.
And yeah, good point. Let's see. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In this case, it's not going to hurt us, so we'll just go ahead and close out of that. Let's go ahead and take and delete Health Sphere out. All right, good. Now let's come back over here to Command Up and run again.
Okay, what it probably was is you just changed the name of the mesh. You didn't actually do anything that would cause an error.
Yeah, leave it to me. So what we need to do is go ahead and jump back up real quick. I was trying to get in and out because I didn't want people to see code that much. You know, people start to sweat a little bit. So let's jump back in here. Let's come
let's
back
find
up.
an invalid file. Go find the .psk.
And there it is. So yeah, there. That definitely does not exist. So we'll go ahead and save that out. Go ahead and close this. And again, let's make sure up. Actually, you know what, though? You say that, and I disagree.
No,
you know why?
Packages out because of Unreal Ed.
That's right. You want to explain what happened?
Well, on Unreal Ed was using the normal UT 2003 INI, and apparently it had its own settings loaded from before we loaded in we made the changes. So when we closed Unreal Ed back out, it resaved the settings. It didn't reread. It just rewrote the INI file. This is
extremely important, Logan, that you make sure that everybody out there understands this, because this can become frustrating, can it?
Right. Be careful of whether you have the game or editor open, because it will overwrite the INI file. So if you've made changes yourself and then close or make a change inside the editor or the game, it will overwrite the INI file.
So actually, I'm very, very pleased that this happened. In fact, what I want to do is go ahead and jump in here and do 2 things real quick. First of all, let's go ahead and copy this last line. It's the same thing we did earlier. Okay, so it doesn't hurt to see it twice. And Health Sphere. Now we're going to save it. Now Unreal Ed is already closed down, so we're not going to have to worry.
So nothing else is using this INI file, and nothing else is going to save over it.
Exactly. So now we're in good shape. So we can go ahead and close this out here. And right now, if we run it, of course, we're going to have problems, and let's just see that. As a matter of fact, Logan, what I want to do is come back in here. We should be able to change just that name.
Possibly.
All right, let's go back up. Let's come back over here into Health Sphere.
Depends on where else it's used.
Yeah, my thought is right offhand that it's being used in other places, but I could be wrong. But I think it is. So let's go ahead and set that back up, and let's go ahead and take that out. I believe we should be in pretty good shape. Let's go ahead and close this. Let's come back over here. Let's re-execute. Okay, so it's running through, and there it goes. It just compiled Health Sphere, so we know that it's in there. So now what I want to do is if I come back in here, make a change. So let's go ahead and throw that back in there, and let's save that. That's what I did earlier. And then come back over here, rerun it again. We know that it should be skipped. Again, we're just driving that point home because it's such an important point.
Right, there it actually caught the Health Sphere as an edit package, checked for it, but the .u existed, so it sees it's already compiled and therefore doesn't need to look for a source folder or a project folder.
That's right. So now we'll go ahead and come back up, jump into System. We'll come back down to the H's, testing my spelling. There we go, and we'll simply get rid of that guy. Gone. Okay, so now let's go ahead and come back over here and run it again, and this time it will have to recompile. And that's what I was expecting earlier. And then you got me all thrown off with the mesh. I was like, okay. But yeah, what had happened was the ini file had been overwritten, and that's something that you really got to watch out for, because that can, especially a beginner, that can really kind of baffle a beginner and get them really confused, especially if they're trying to follow along with this video and that wouldn't have happened, and they got themselves caught up in that loop there going, wait a minute, what happened? And they may not know to go in there and check that UT2003.ini file to see if their line just got removed out. As you can see here, it did now try to actually recompile it, but we ran into one error and 3 warnings. We've got some problems because of that mesh in there. We got to go change that mesh name back. So it's just a matter of like, all right, well, we see we've got a problem, so we just need to come back in here and go back up. If you have an error, it's not going to compile a .u. Now be careful, because you can get some warnings and still be successful.
Right, if all you were missing was, say, like a texture, and you could get away without actually using that texture, you were just bringing it into the package, you can actually get the class to work, or classes that aren't dependent on a certain texture. But you're going to be missing whatever you couldn't find.
That's right. So let's go ahead and jump back in here real quick, and let's go ahead and come back down here to classes and jump back in here real fast. And let's say we've been looking, we found the problem, we saved it out. Go ahead and close out of this. We'll come back over here and UCC make again, and this is just showing excellent troubleshooting. And look at that. 0 errors, 0 warnings. You've got the .u file back over there. You know for a fact, just look for these things. If you don't see analyzing, parsing, and all that stuff, then I got news for you. It didn't do anything. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the lesson. The whole idea was, again, just kind of some basic Unrealscript workflow, not in regards to programming, but just once you're done with the programming part, how do you start putting it all together and getting it into Unreal Tournament 2003? And I wanted to get this out of the way early on in the lesson, so that, or this whole VTM set of lessons, so that later on as we start building things, we don't have to go back and push this idea.
Right, we'll just show that after you've built a script, you already know where to put it, so that when you compile it, it'll be brought in, and then you can use it in the game.
Absolutely. So with that, that's going to conclude this lesson right here. Thanks, everyone.